When we are looking at something in one perspective, the friend comes into the picture and gives us a whole new perspective about something. So after when they won, what has happened? He's reading about the parallel world India where Marathas won. Then after that, it helped them establish supremacy in the northern India. A reality is that if I might see an object over here, there will be a pen or a ball over here. To me, it is to my left. To another person standing in another direction, it could be to their right. Hello and welcome to your prep school English classes. I am your prep school teacher Kshama. Today in this session, we are going to talk about your 7th chapter from the textbook Hornbill, named as The Adventure. Yes, we are going to take up an adventure today indeed. This lesson over here, regarded as the complicated of all, is the amalgamation of various branches of study, I would say. It has been written by Jayant Narlikar. We'll get to know in detail as to what is the adventure about. Let me take you, okay? Now in this session over here, we are going to talk about the author, the background of the lesson, where is the lesson or the events in the lesson taking place, what is the summary, okay? And then we'll recap the entire lesson at the end. Without wasting any time, I have a couple of questions for you as always. Have you heard of the term interdisciplinary? Does that ring a bell or have you heard of it? Go and check it out. What is interdisciplinary? Then, do you have a friend, you yourself have a technique where you use a help of one subject in order to learn another? Do you do that? Or does the amalgamation of different subjects or different topics, does that interest you or does that bore you? Imagine, taking the example of language or English in order to learn math. So, for example, when you are trying to learn math, you might take examples or help of language, English, for example. Do you do that? Does that interest you? That's my next question. And in the films, most of the films that we see, Indian context, we see that the protagonist is going back in his life or in the story of his life, finding out that whatever the truth that he knew about his own life is not true at all. Either it is partially true or completely false, okay? He realizes that his parents are not his parents and he was not born in this family at all, something like that, right? So what if, I'm just asking, whatever that you knew about your own life was not true or it was something very different from the way you know it? Does that, is it a shock to take all of a sudden? Or you can just think about it, what if? Okay, don't go and bother your parents as to, was I not born in this place or is it not my true history and all of that, okay? I just want you to think about it. Then, moving forward, we have to know about Jayant Narlikar. Who is Jayant Narlikar? He is an Indian astrophysicist. He is an emeritus professor at the Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysicist. He was a former professor there. Then, along with another scientist named as Sir Fred Hoyle, he, brought up the conformal gravity theory. A lot of science going in the literature, I know. Fasten your seatbelts right now and be ready to be enthralled by all the experience that you're about to unravel right now, okay? Then, known as the Hoyle-Narlikar theory, the theory that we were talking about, Jayant Narlikar along with Sir Fred Hoyle discovered he talked about the conformal gravity theory, which was known by both of their surnames, that is the Hoyle-Narlikar theory. Then talking about his father, Jayant Narlikar's father was a mathematician, okay? And then he was also a theoretical physicist. He was also the head of the department at the Banaras Hindu University. Then about his mother, who was Sumati Narlikar, she was also a scholar in Sanskrit. That's what we know about Jayant Narlikar. A lot of science, okay? Keep this in your mind and let's see what Jayant Narlikar has in store for us. Now this particular story that we are going to talk about is a science fiction, okay? And what do you have to know in this particular story? There are two important characters. The first one is Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, okay? And the second one over here is Rajendra Deshpande. We'll keep it Gangadhar Pant and Rajendra. These two are friends, but our protagonist, the main character over here is Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, Professor Gaitonde. He is a historian and he's about to discover something, experience something, whereas Rajendra is that friend of ours. We all have this friend. Let's agree on this one, okay? Who, when we are looking at something in one perspective, the friend comes into the picture and gives us a whole new perspective about something. Now, Rajendra is that friend of yours, and Gangadhar Gaitonde or Gangadhar Pant is you, who is in another world experiencing something else. Okay, let's see what is it all about. Now, over here, we see that, to give you a little context, Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde is actually going to give a seminar to Azad Maidan. And the topic of the seminar would be on Battle of Panipat. Just when he would be going to give the seminar, he'd be thinking about some theory. Let's not talk about theory right now and spoil everything, okay? Let's keep it very interesting till the end. Now over here, Gangadhar Pant will be thinking about the implications of that theory. How can that theory be applied to this Battle of Panipat? Right when he was about to think of it, he is met with an accident. A disaster, catastrophe happens. Now when that happens, he actually goes to coma. When he goes to coma, his mind is still working and he thinks of something that forms the nutshell of this entire lesson. Now when he is in coma, what happens? Let's see. Now this Professor Gaitonde, this is in a parallel world. When he is in coma, he has moved to a parallel world. His mind alone has moved to a parallel world and is, working over there. His body is in the real world, but his mind is in the parallel world. Just when he was thinking about catastrophe theory, met with an accident, about to give a lecture in Azad Maidan, this happens, okay? What happens in that parallel world? Let's understand that first. So in the parallel world, Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, who is the historian, who is a professor, he is traveling from Pune to Bombay. Notice that I'm not calling it Mumbai as it is called today. When I call it Bombay, we can decode that he has gone back during the British time period. Yes, he has gone there and he is traveling from Pune to Bombay on train. Then he has a plan. What is the plan? He has a plan to find out what is happening in the present with the help of the past, or by reading a couple of books. He wants to understand whatever the time period that he has come into. I know it all sounds like a Doctor Strange multiverse madness, but hang on here right now with me. I'll make it easier for you. Now when he is traveling from Pune to Bombay in his parallel world, his mind, okay, he has a plan. Okay, let me just go to the library, read and find out how is it that this situation is over here. What is the India that I am in right now is like? Let's understand about it more. And then go back to Pune and talk to my friend Rajendra Deshpande. That's what he wants to know. He doesn't know if Rajendra exists or does not exist. Where have I come? He doesn't know anything about it. But he has a plan and he is moving forward to execute that plan. Then what happens? He wants to go back and talk to Rajendra Deshpande. That's what he wants to do. Then he reads the sign that says British Raj begins. Okay. And in the train, he listens to a couple of elder people talking about how is it in India right now. He wanted to know about the India that he did not really experience. He only had read about it, talked about it. But he wanted to know how the actual experience was. So he was a willing listener to whoever was talking to him. Then he also saw the Greater Bombay Metropolitan Highway. It was also written with small Union Jacks painted, letting us know that it is the British India that we are in right now. There were British officers, Anglo-Indians and Parsis who were working in all the railway stations and all the buildings, okay? And the buildings that he saw were very much a representation of towns in England, where there was no handlooms and stuff. It was all booths and other it was typically resembling to the town of England, it looked like. Then there was a huge building that read East India House, Headquarters of East India Company. He's like, wait. So after the events of 1857, East India Company should have left India. It shouldn't have been here right now. What is it doing right now? Is history completely changed? In the real world that he knows, East India Company should have gone by now. It shouldn't have been there. Then what went wrong? Why is East India Company still here? What is this parallel world? What is happening? Then in order to find out more, what he does is that he has a couple of questions, right? East India Company, EIC as I call it right here, it should have been gone after the events of 1857. But it's not the case. Then what happened? He wants to know. So he sees all the shops and offices which resembles quite similar to the towns of England. Then he goes to the Forbes building. He goes inside the Forbes building with an intention. He inquires there about Mr. Vinay Gaitonde, who is apparently his own son. Now, if you yourself, your mind is traveling in this parallel world, where will your son come from? So when the person checks in the register, there's no Mr. Vinay Gaitonde over there. He's surprised, but he doesn't let his mind delve into it too much. So he goes out from there. Forbes building, there's no Mr. Vinay Gaitonde. Okay. Then, if you don't exist, where will your son come from, right? And he goes to the town hall, finds the Asiatic, as you can see in the picture, the Library of Asiatic Society is still there. So he goes inside, asks for a bunch of history books, including his own. He is a historian, right? So he asks for a bunch of books, including his own, which has 5 volumes. It is his own style of writing, no wonder. But it felt like he was reading it for the first time. So he starts reading. The first volume is about Ashoka. The second volume is about Samudragupta. Everything is fine till now. The third volume is about Muhammad Ghori. The fourth about the death of Aurangzeb. Everything is fine till now. And in the 5th volume, particularly, he finds where history has been changed. Where did it change? What has happened? In the 5th volume only something has changed. What is it? How has it been changed? Particularly in the third battle of Panipat, where the battle was fought between the Marathas, Vishwasa Rao, and the Abdali troops. Correct? Now, between this, according to Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, as he sees it over here in this parallel India, Marathas won. But in our world, okay, in our world of reality, Marathas did not win. It is the Abdali troop that won. But in the parallel world where Gangadhar Gaitonde's mind is, there Marathas won. I hope that this is making sense, okay? So after when they won, what has happened? He is reading about the parallel world India where Marathas won. Then after that, it helped them establish supremacy in the northern India. Okay. After that, the East India Company, it did not even think of the plan of, executing their expansion program. It did not expand. Later on, what happened? The Mughals were kept as puppets in the Delhi for political reasons. Okay. They also hadn't left India. East India Company is still there. Mughals were kept alive. They were also still there. But the Marathas have supremacy, right? Then the Peshwas, realizing the importance eventually as he sees, he has to come to the current India, right? If the world that he is in is the current India, it should make sense. The gaps should be filled, right? So he says, okay, Marathas won in this parallel world. Then after that, they established supremacy. East India Company did not expand. Then there is Mughals who are kept alive as puppets. After that, Peshwas actually eventually realized the dawn of science and technology that was taking place in the Europe. They also felt the need for science and technology. They understood it. And just when they realized it, East India Company was like, hey, I'm here to help. Then the aid was accepted. They came forward to help and the help was accepted. And in the 20th century, as world moved towards the 20th century, democracy was established and these Peshwas were replaced by democratically elected bodies. That is how this parallel world has reasons for the current existing India. That's not exactly what has happened. We had British ruling us. We were under, British had conquered us. We were not independent till 1947. That is the real world history. But in the parallel world, this is the history that Gangadhar Gaitonde sees and reads about, okay? And there was a treaty between, East India Company and the Indian government that is there, that in the year 1908, that they will, have their branch or establishment only in Bombay, that he is in right now, okay? That is why East India Company is still there. And they will be leaving the country by 2001. That is where their treaty ends and they will be leaving. That's how it is. But it is so different, right? The history that we know and the history that Gangadhar Gaitonde is experiencing is completely different. Where did it all change? Why is he experiencing such a thing? What happened after the accident? Let's find out. Okay. So Gangadhar Pant appreciates the India that he sees over there. Okay, wow. So India was not subjected to slavery at all. It stood on its own 2 feet. How amazing is that? Okay. Then we spoke about the treaty. East India Company will be leaving by 2001. Then he wanted a clue to support this. What is exactly that one point where history took another turn in this parallel world? Okay. Then he finds the book of Bau Sahib Bakar. What is this? He used to usually refer to these books for entertainment, but this particular book over here, Bau Sahib Bakar, gives him a clue. What is the clue? He finds a particular instance where Vishwasa Rao was battling with the Abdali troops and he was shot. Okay? But in this particular book, Bau Sahib Bakar, it is mentioned that the bullet passed or brushed through his ear. Actually, in the war, he was killed in the real world and Marathas lost. But over here in this parallel world, Vishwasa Rao, the shot that was shot by the Afghans, it did not touch him. It just brushed over him and he did not die. And Marathas won. That's what the history says. Right when he read that, the librarian was like, "Sir, it's the closing time. Can you make haste?" So in that haste, in that hurry, he did not even realize how he put that particular Bau Sahib Bakar notes into his pockets and he left the library. After that, what happened? Absent-mindedly, he put it into his pocket. Then he saw that in the Azad Maidan, yes, the same Azad Maidan was there in his parallel world as well. He saw that in the Azad Maidan, there is a lecture that is going on. But there is nobody in the presidential chair, the one who heads the seminar, right? There is nobody over there. And the crowd is all violent, they're all screaming, they don't want the seminar to happen. They're like, we have all, we are past all the seminar and everything, we don't want this to happen. But then Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, who has the experience of, giving lectures in 999 seminars, he was like, let me take the presidential chair and talk about it. He tries to talk. Only when he tries to do so, the crowd starts yelling, the presidential chair is empty. Is it not symbolic? Can you not make a sense out of it that it should not happen at all? Then they start throwing eggs, tomatoes and objects at him, poor Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde. He is humiliated in the parallel world that he is in. Then after that, this is where the parallel world ends. A parallel world where history is completely different. And he is not treated as a historian who is most wanted for all the seminars. That's what happened. That's all I have to say, Rajendra. He finished his account of whatever that he remembers after he has come out of coma. Now he has come out of coma. Then he was found in the Azad Maidan. That's what happened. Where I was there. Then where did I go for 2 days? Where was I for 2 days? When he explained all of this, even to us, if somebody explains such a thing, we would think of it as a piece of imagination only, right? So just when Gaitonde felt like maybe Rajendra is also thinking that I have imagined something or I was in a piece of, imagination or a la-la land. Then, prior to the collision, Rajendra asks, what were you doing prior to the collision, before the accident? What were you doing? Tell me exactly. He says, I was thinking about the implications of catastrophe theory on the Battle of Panipat. That was going to be my lecture in the 1000th seminar that I was about to give. That is what I was thinking. Let's keep the catastrophic theory here. Okay, that's what he was thinking. So if that is the case, Rajendra tries to reason it and say, so when you were thinking about the catastrophic theory, what is a catastrophe theory? A catastrophic theory says that when there is a sudden change that you are subjected to, there will be change in your behavior too. Imagine, this is actually, a real incident from one of my encounters as well. It was my first day being a PCMB student in my science class. And I was sitting there and I did not know that there was a particular register or a notebook that you had to bring. And my biology teacher calls me and tells me, where's your book? The entire class has it. You don't have it. I was like, no, I did not really know that it has to be carried. I'm really sorry. But then she was not really pleased with it and she went on to say this shouldn't be done in the next class. And I kind of felt embarrassed that day. It was my first day in front of entire class. That was not what I was expecting for a first day. But then it became such a thing that I didn't want to let myself down in front of the teacher ever again. And I decided I'd take her subject very seriously and it went on to become my favorite subject and started scoring really well in it. Everything, it was biology. So there were two approaches to this particular thing, okay? The sudden change was that the teacher questioning you on the first day in front of everyone, you alone. So your response could be either starting to hate the teacher, that's a sudden shift that can happen in your behavior, or you might take it as a, in your sportsmanship, and you might be like, hey, let's just do really well in this teacher's subject and get shabas from her, right? So if you apply that over here, when there was a sudden change, when Gangadhar Gaitonde was thinking about it as he was moving and met with an accident, that is what made his brain to think about it, to move to a parallel world and think about it, or as though I was in a parallel world, to feel that way. That was the reason. The sudden collision made that shift in his behavior, in his mind, that way. That's the first reason or the first theory that Rajendra gives. But our Gaitonde over here is not really happy about it. So you also think I'm just blabbering about something, aren't you? So you also think that I'm talking about some imaginary, blabberings, right? Then he says, it's not a piece of imagination that I'm talking about. Believe me. So he shows the clue that is there. Yes. Now this, shifts the entire discussion that we were having till now, right? The Barker notes that he had put into his pockets, it is still there. Gaitonde takes it out and gives it to Rajendra. See for yourself. Look, read. Now you believe me? Okay. Then his copy of Barker is still there, where Vishwasa Rao, in his copy, in particular copy written by Gaitonde, Vishwasa Rao is hit by the bullet and he dies. That's the actual incident. But the Barker notes over here says Vishwasa Rao was not hit by the bullet. It brushed or passed through his ears. That's what happens. Again, Rajendra tries to scaffold this with the help of catastrophe theory, and he says, see, the suddenness that happened in this particular incident also is the fact that Vishwasa Rao, the very fact that a bullet was shot towards him is enough to bring the morale of the entire troop down, right? It's enough. Because both the troops were, equally strong. There is no difference between both the troops. Now this one sudden shift of the bullet being shot, it will automatically bring the morale of the entire troop down. And that might have, you don't know whether Vishwasa Rao or Babu Sahib, they went into the army's troops and did they die or not, you don't know. But the very fact that the troops got to know that something has happened to their king or something has happened to their leader, it will bring their morale down, and that might have led to the, Marathas losing the war. Now over here our Gangadhar Gaitonde is like, okay, but can you say that to everything? The other, in all the battles, if you apply it, so the other party might have won. Speculation isn't reality. So are you speculating? He says. Then, no, I'm not really speculating. So as an observer, reality is different to all of us. A reality is that if I might see an object over here, there will be a pen or a ball over here. To me, it is to my left. To another person standing in another direction, it could be to their right. It doesn't change the reality that the pen is here, right? For us viewers or the observers, it might seem different. So he says, reality, the catastrophic experience, he tries to apply it to the Battle of Panipat. Let's not go too deep into it and, make a scramble out of our heads. Now, we talked about how, are you speculating then? It might have been the case, may have been the case. No. Reality can have manifestations. It can have its own different avatars, right? The lack of determinism. Then he talks about quantum theory. Let's not dig into it too much. I know you're scratching your heads. Now, what is lack of determinism in quantum theory? Imagine when he tries to give an example over here, which explains us this way. When you shoot a bullet, for an instance, I sounded like Ross from Friends. Anyway, when you shoot an electron from its source, you can't really exactly speculate as to where the electron is situated. So you have shot it at a particular distance, at a particular speed. You might just guess where it is. It is also moving from higher energy levels to lower energy levels. You have all studied about it. But you can't exactly point out at where it is. There is in life in general also a lot of things that you can't predict. Even after, many people working on things and, the weather stations working upon things, there are a lot of systems, machines and everything. At times there is rain. At times there is the, day is sunny. It's partly cloudy. We can't explain everything. There are things that are unexplained. There can not be reason behind everything that can be discovered. That is lack of determinism in quantum theory. Now he tries to apply that over here. Now this, when an electron jumps from higher energy level to lower energy level and all that, it might have been the case that you experienced, there are a lot of galaxies, a lot of other worlds, right, that we don't know about. There might have been a case when you were hit by the truck, the neurons in your head, when you were thinking about the implications of catastrophic theory on the Battle of Panipat, the neurons in your head, it triggered something, and you might have moved, your mind might have moved to a parallel world where it experienced the situation of India completely different, in a completely different context, where Marathas had won. East India Company was there only for a particular period of time. It did not have so much power. Marathas had supremacy, and then eventually there was democracy. India was not subjected to slavery at all. That might have happened. That's how he tries to explain it. Okay. Now that you have this actual experience of this, battle and what had happened and everything, you can talk about it in your 1000th seminar that you're about to give in the Azad Maidan. Then he also tells him, didn't you see what happened in the Azad Maidan, in the parallel world, how I was treated? So I've called, in the real world, he's saying, I've called these people who had, arranged the seminar in Azad Maidan, and I've told them to cancel it, that I'm not going to come, because in the parallel world, he was treated like that by the people who had gathered there, and he didn't want it to experience or anywhere close to that place again. So he says, that is not happening, my friend. Then he gives the electrons example, of course. So reality, all the alternates are viable, but the observer can experience one at a time. But in Gaitonde's case, it's amazing as to how, when his body was in one world, his mind was able to experience something else, something from a parallel world. Okay, so it was Gaitonde's macroscopic experience of a small-sized electron. Then his 1000th seminar is obviously cancelled. That's what we got to know in this entire lesson. There is our guy, Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde, who is seen to be time traveling and seeing the fact that there is, during the time British were there in India, where he sees, British Raj begins and all the small Union Jacks painted over there. And he assumes that, wait, so after the events of 1857, as he knows in the real world, British should have left India. What are they still doing here? So he goes on to make some research and finds out that in the parallel world that he is in, do not confuse it. It's not the real world. It's the parallel world that he is in. He's not expecting what should be expected, right? So you might be assuming that, is Gangadhar Gaitonde crazy? Or something like that. So in the India that he experiences, India is not subjected to slavery at all. The history is completely different. And he also finds clue for it, the Bakar notes. And then he goes to the Azad Maidan, where he is not welcomed at all. He's welcomed with tomatoes and eggs. Then when he comes back, he tries to explain this to his friend, and his friend tries to reason it with the help of two theories. The catastrophe theory. Catastrophe as a word in general means disaster. So when a disaster happens or a sudden change happens, there is a shift in your behavior as well. So he tries to explain it with the help of catastrophe theory and the lack of determinism in quantum theory. It might have been the case that you experienced another world because you have the notes in your pocket, or it may not have been the case as well. Okay, it all depends on perspectives, the way you see it. It is, of course, a piece of literature written by science fiction, written by Jayant Narlikar. But the scientific perspective that they have tried to see the events through is really magnificent. It gives a whole new perspective altogether. For you guys who have enjoyed all the multiverse movies and stuff, this will be very interesting. Do not miss out on any details. Please go and read the entire lesson line by line. If I have missed out on something, it's your duty to tell me, okay? I'll be waiting for that. On that note, I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you.